I like horror games, specifically first-person horror games. I like the immersion and some of the possibilities that come from this format. As a result, I got excited for the chance to play Gone Home. It looked like a new and different kind of horror game, and I kept my exposure to anything plot-related to an extreme minimum. When I finally got into the game and got to playing it, though, I came to find out that it was not a horror game and was, in fact, a very touching story, and one that really weaves itself in a way that will still kind of distract you from time to time. There's the old house with the shady town history, some severe weather going on outside, so there's lightning in the windows and loud cracks of thunder, dark rooms and hallways, creaking floors, and even a red herring about the man who used to live here. There's also a couple times where I thought one of the two main characters was in jeopardy. Speaking of the leads in this game, there are really three of them: Katie, her younger sister Sam, and Lonnie. The game begins with the player in the shoes of the older sister Katie, who has recently returned home after being abroad in Europe for an extended period of time. Her flight gets in late, so she takes a cab from the airport, and we begin the story as she arrives on the front porch to find everyone else in the house gone and the front door locked. This is where the game kind of begins to try to take the player in a direction they aren't quite expecting. At least it did for me. It definitely feels like the beginning of a horror game. There's nobody here, in a creepy old house, and all the lights are off. Well, as it turns out, this is most definitely not one of those experiences. This has, in fact, been labeled as another one of those games that have been slapped with the stigma of walking simulator. You make your way around the house, exploring and trying to find each part of the story, which, as we discovered previously with the Stanley Parable, the story is unique and doesn't deserve to be hit with a negative connotation of an unfortunate category. The story here is one that isn't quite as lighthearted as Stanley and definitely has a different vibe to it. It's definitely more real world, more of a tale of life and things that can transpire in it. It's the story about a family, but only two of the members are the central focus point. Now this is a part where I have to put up a spoiler warning because as this story unfolds, it has different emotional beats, particular things that have to be discovered in a way to make the story feel more natural and not as contrived or not thought out about properly. So if you have not experienced this story, which is a term I will come back to at least a couple of times later, then please pause this and go give this a go-round. It doesn't take that long to complete, maybe a couple hours if you're taking your time and taking in everything that this house has to share with the player. Once you've returned to the title screen, then come back and we can look at the very soulful story that has been put in front of us. We pick up after having entered the old house and find some disconcerting messages on the answering machine, which the game does take place in the mid-90s when answering machines were still something that was almost a requirement in the house. If there wasn't one, you would not know who called and they wouldn't be able to leave a voicemail. The player, as Katie, presses play and hears a crying voice, and her own voice, trying to let her parents know that what her flight plans were. You can then turn on the lights, take a look around, and begin to open drawers, pick up small objects, and generally behave as though this is the house you last lived in with where the rest of your family lives. You slowly begin to find items that trigger journal entries from your younger sister Sam, who, like everyone else, is gone. The goal, though, is really to find out where everyone else is, as it's the middle of the night and everyone should be in their rooms and sleeping. The journal entries are voice-acted, and it's Sam telling you everything that has been going on that led up to her departure. As far as Katie's parents are concerned, the reason they are gone is found out by reading things in the environment. Letters scattered around, telegrams from work, calendar entries, and things that kind of build a sort of schedule of events. Through these journal entries, you find out that Sam has had kind of a hard time adjusting to the new house over time. Struggled a bit to make friends. Things have been kind of weird with the guys at school. Everyone knows her as Psycho House Girl. This is another way the story tries to throw off the player. You find out that the previous owner, a member of the family, had been known as less than savory to the people of the town during his life, and as a result, both him and the house have earned an infamous reputation. Being saddled with this is not as easy on Sam, and really isn't fair, but as the old saying goes, you know how kids can be. In a way, this game, and all three of the games in this series really, are a lot like Sam in this situation. They have been looked down upon by the rest of the kids because a few people had some preconceived notions about what was going on, even though they had no desire to find out themselves. But you are here. You clearly have some desire to find out what this is all about, so let's keep moving forward. Sam feels awkward and having a hard time fitting in. She's obviously really creative and just looking for her place as a majority of, if not all, high school students her age are. Now, before I move too far forward into this story, I want to address to those of you who have played this game before that I am in no way going to go into any real depth on some of what this story touches on or try to analyze it in any way. I genuinely feel like I'm not entirely qualified to do that sort of thing, so I'm just going to tell you how the story of Sam made me feel. As far as the story beats themselves, I will let them tell their own story for me.
We moved into this house. I'm in a new school, and my big sister being gone for a year doesn't make it any easier. It's doesn't feel real. But I'm not gonna let it faze me. I used to tell you everything, and if I can't do it in person, because you're off gallivanting around who knows where, I'll tell it to this journal, just like I was talking to you. Oh my god, you are so lucky you finished high school before we moved into this house. So, it's the first day of school, and there I am, introducing myself to the class, and I say that I just moved into the house on Arbor Hill. All of a sudden, every kid in the room turns and just stares like I suddenly transformed into a mutant. I just stood there, wishing pretty hard for a rewind button. Because now maybe nobody knows my name, but they all know who I am. The Psycho House girl. Great. You know that feeling where the first moment you see someone, it's like they have a big gold star around them, and you have to get to know them? Well, there's this girl. I think she's a senior. She's usually dressed kind of punk, but sometimes I see her in this, army uniform. She's always drawing in this notebook, looking so intense. I had no idea how I would ever, have an excuse to talk to her. Till I noticed she and her friends hang out and play Street Fighter at the 7-Eleven every day after school. When you live in one place your whole life, your next door neighbor is kind of like your default friend. And Daniel only got weirder over the years. So moving away has been a good excuse to, not see him anymore. But he did always have the good Nintendo games. Maybe I'll give him a call. So you know what they say about the best laid plans of mice and men? Yeah, turns out it applies to Street Fighter too. At least I worked up the courage to walk into the 7-Eleven and ask for a turn, but all that practice at home did not exactly translate in the wild. So after I was finished getting my butt kicked, I followed them outside while they smoked. And that was when she asked me if I was that Psycho House girl. But then she said she's always really wanted to see the Psycho House. Her name is Lonnie. She's coming over tomorrow. It's weird hanging out with girls. Daniel was around ever since I was little, and other girls? I don't know. But being around Lonnie is instantly just right. I gave her the grand Psycho House tour and took my revenge on Super Nintendo. And it was I don't know, I finally found someone I feel normal around. I drove her home and she gave me this tape and said, "You have got to listen to this." I haven't stopped playing it since. Sometimes you just have to lie to Mom and Dad. Like when Lonnie asked me to see a band with her and stay over at her friend's place in the city after. That's a lie to Mom and Dad's situation. But it was so worth it. The girls on stage were just so loud and real and awesome. And everybody was moving together like one huge tide of sound. Between two songs, Lonnie leaned over and said, "How do you like your first show?" I was so happy, I felt tears starting in my eyes. And then she up and hugged me. I think she could tell. At Todd's brother's place after the show, there was only a futon to sleep on, so Lonnie and I shared it. The lights went out. I was turned toward her. My eyes started to adjust, and then I could see she was looking at me, too. In the dark, she smiled. My heart was beating so fast. I rolled over. I felt so, I don't know, nervous. After a minute, she put her arm around me and was so close and whispered in my ear, "I really like you." I just nodded my head, and I really hope she could tell. I really hope that she meant what I think she did. I felt like a shook-up can of soda ever since. I hope we have the chance to talk before I explode. Lonnie came over today, but everything was different. She was sitting at my desk chair, and she wouldn't look at me. Finally, I asked her what was going on. She said she felt like she'd done something wrong that night in the city. Like I must think... But I said no. There was nothing wrong. I just wanted to say... But I couldn't find the words. I felt like I was gonna cry, but I wasn't sad. She got up and sat next to me on the bed. I looked at her. Lonnie, do you think you could ever... And that's when she kissed me. It's different now. I mean, we still hang out all the time like before. But now when no one else is around... Well, you know. So you could say we're dating. But it's secret. Secret dating? I don't know. I mean, I guess that's the real difference. Now when we get off the phone or go home for the night, or it's just quiet and we're alone, we say I love you. I'm so stupid sometimes. I was telling Lonnie that I got into my college summer program thing, and I was all making plans like, you should come visit me, stay in my dorm room. But she said, Sam, I ship out on June 6th. I was like, ship out? To where? She said, to basic training. What did you think I was doing all that ROTC stuff for? I guess she's been planning to join the army right after high school since she was like 12. And I guess she's really going to do it. So I was like, after graduation, I'm just never going to see you again? She said, let's just have fun while we can. They tell you to stick with the group on field trips, Katie. There's a reason for that. Lonnie and I snuck off on the side paths at Multnomah Falls and got a little lost. Okay, a lot lost. Like, for hours. Right before the bus left, we found a trail and came running down the path, soaked and covered in mud, shouting for the bus not to leave. The school called home. Mom and Dad said, you didn't get into trouble like this before you met that Lonnie girl. But I don't think they know about us. The kids at school, though, I'm really afraid that's a whole other story. Stick with the group, Katie. Stick with the group. I don't get Lonnie sometimes. Like, her band, and our zine, and her hair, and everything are all anti-authority. But I watch her in JROTC, and she's doing drills in perfect formation, following orders, no question. And there's all this stuff in the news about don't ask, don't tell. Like, she's going to join the army and then have to lie about who she is. She said they don't need to know what they don't need to know. Like it was no big deal. This from the girl who trashed her locker to, like, defend my honor. I've learned when to stop arguing, though. I don't think Lonnie even gets Lonnie sometimes. I had an interesting talk with Mom and Dad tonight. One you were never gonna need to have. I mean, you've known, right? I've known. I've known since, like, She-Ra. Mom and Dad didn't, I guess. But they saw the zine and stuff on the locker, and they were like, is there something we should know about you and Lonnie? And so here's the thing. I was prepared for them to be mad, or disappointed, or start crying, or something, but they were just in denial. You're too young to know what you want. You and Lonnie are just good friends. You just haven't met the right boy. It's a phase. That's what I didn't see coming. That they wouldn't even respect me enough to believe me. Well, joke's on them, because they're in for one very long phase. I asked Lonnie what she had to do to get ready to ship out for basic training. She said, not a lot, really. You're not allowed to bring anything with you. You have no possessions. no contact with the outside world while you're in basic. You just train hard every day, and then you deploy from there. So, they'll just send her away. To who knows where. The other side of the country. The other side of the world. My mind, can't process it. That she's really going to be gone. Just gone. We agreed our last night together would be our happiest ever, and we'd forget tomorrow was going to come at all. It worked for a while. We had a good time seeing Oscar off, then ran up to the attic to look through our photos, to find one for Lonnie to take with her. And looking at them, I realized they were all in the past, and there wouldn't be any more. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I cried, and she held me. She said she knew it was hard, but life would move on. I said I didn't want my life to keep moving without her. That's when she cried too. I was so exhausted. I must have fallen asleep like that, in her arms. In the morning, I woke up, and I was finally alone. The sunset light in this house is the saddest thing I've ever seen. I just want to sleep. When I'm in the attic, it almost feels like Lonnie could still be here. She's just downstairs. I'm just waiting to hear her pull down the hatch and come running up. Maybe I'll go up to the attic and wait. Oh my God. Katie, I fell asleep in the attic, in Lonnie and my old spot, and I missed the first 2 calls. I just barely caught the third one before the machine got it. And it was Lonnie, on a payphone. She'd been on the bus to basic, and she said she couldn't think of anything but me and us, and that she couldn't go through with it, with the army and being apart and all of it. And so she got off the bus in Salem. She said, "Sam, I want you to pack up everything you can and get in your car and come find me. And let's just drive until we find somewhere for us." And she asked me if I could do that. And I said yes. Yes.
This is a very moving story and honestly had me sitting back in my chair trying not to get too emotional. The love story that it folds is truly one that is pretty pure among other ones that exist, especially in the game space. Not just in the order of the telling, because it's really in chronological order, but more so in how Sam and Lonnie meet, the way Sam feels for her, the times they have, their zine, the really raw garage music that was prevalent at the time. It's just all very well done. The voice acting is perfect, as is the way they make the game feel, like it's from a different time. Granted, it was only the mid-90s, not the Old West or anything, but when you compare it to today, it feels like a different time. Speaking of comparisons, I'm going to go back to what I was saying earlier about experiencing this story. This game is not one of those walking simulators. It's very much a story experience, much like Stanley was. Granted, the ending is the same regardless of the decisions that you make, so there's no input from the player there, but it is still a story experience. Instead of reading through pages, you're weaving your way through a place created to facilitate the story, making your way through parts of the house that help to tell not just the story of Sam and Lonnie, but the story of the parents as well. You find out that they have been having a bit of a hard time since the kids moved out. They have felt distant from each other, and there is even a suggestion of a possible affair between Sam's mom and a fellow employee. You find out that Sam's dad is a struggling author who is now reviewing electronics, which may be a commentary on YouTubers. I don't know. Maybe that's not accurate. They decided to tell everyone else that they were going away on a camping trip when, in reality, they went on a couples counseling trip. So with them gone, trying to save their relationship, and Sam gone to try to start one with Lonnie, the house is empty for the returning Katie to explore and find out where everyone else is. This is precisely why this is not a walking simulator. You are discovering memories, secret panels, and back hallways, sorting through items in a room, really feeling like this very well could be your home. It is an experience of a story, and a very moving one at that. I came into this expecting something and was definitely met with not just a surprise, but one of the best stories I've ever had the pleasure of playing. Until next time, folks. Until then.